Welcome to the Rehumanisation Station. I'm your collaborator, Christopher Jones, aka Dr. X, and this podcast is an extension to my Flippin' and Vibin' brand where vibers seek to transform narratives in society, education, and sport, and more so. Today is our collaborative practice series where we have a fantastic viber named Sandra Okori with us today. Sandra, how are you doing?
I'm very well, thank you, Christopher.
Yeah, thank you for being here.
And thank you for having me.
Of course. Sandra is a 31-year-old social worker from Uganda, but is currently completing a master's degree at the University of Innsbruck in Austria. Right, so remember, we're in Austria today, y'all. We're still in Austria. And she's studying peace, security, development, and international conflict transformation. Sandra's thesis investigates the integration of African migrants in Austria. And that's what we're going to kind of get into today, which I'm very excited about. So this is the part of our show where we just vibe and allow listeners to get an idea of your background and your personal interests, right? So, Sandra, what's your story? Tell us a bit about your background, where you're from, your family. Yeah.
Thank you very much. I'm Sandra, and I'm 31 years old. I'm from Uganda, and I'm currently studying in Austria, in Innsbruck to be exact. I come from a family of 7 people. I have 5 brothers, and I was raised by a single mother. So I would say I've had a very interesting and very fun childhood, and I wouldn't change or give up my family for anything, because I've learned so much growing up with my boys and with my mom. So it has become like a bond that is unbreakable to me. Yes.
And where are you at within your siblings? So you said there's 7 of y'all? Or
6.
There's 6 siblings,
yeah.
And you have 5?
I have 5 brothers.
But that's ironic because, there's 5 of us, and my sister is the oldest, and there's 4 brothers under her. So, okay. And you said you're the oldest or the youngest?
I'm the 3rd eldest.
Okay, so you're in the middle.
Yes, I am.
Oh, so am I. I'm the middle child too. But it's good that you enjoyed it, because typically that's a stereotype that middle children are the forgotten children, but that's just a stereotype. But that's cool. So, where's your family at right now? Are they still in Uganda, or are they any other places like you, travel like you, or?
No, like everyone else is back home. Everyone else is back home, yeah.
Okay. And what brought you to Austria specifically? Like, what made you study here?
What made me study here is I have one of my uncles studied here like in 2011, sorry. Okay. So he told me about the program, and at first I was a bit hesitant because it's my first time being away from home, but then he walked me through how the program is, the nature of the students, and I remember him telling me that it's a very international group of people, and he told me that if I applied and if I were accepted, I would really enjoy meeting the new international people. And to be honest, he wasn't wrong at all.
Okay, yeah. That's cool. So do you feel like you've met, you've had another family, a second family here at all?
I would say yes.
Okay,
for sure, yeah.
That's nice. And your uncle, is your uncle still living around here in Austria, or is he back home?
No, he's back home.
Okay.
He's a lawyer by profession.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. That's cool. Okay, that's cool. And how long have you been living in Austria now for?
I'll be 2 years.
2 years, okay.
On the 27th of July.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
Now, what about what type of activities bring you, I would say, love, peace, and happiness? What do you enjoy doing outside of academia or your master's?
I love sports. I'm playing Australian football.
Oh, Austrian football, okay.
Australian football.
Okay.
It's very interesting. I love it.
What is Australian football?
It's like we use the rugby ball. The ball is shaped like the rugby.
Right. The rugby ball. I know what the rugby. Yeah, I know what that is. Okay.
And some of the rules do apply, and some do not.
Okay.
So it's also a very interesting group of people. Most of the team members are international, so it also makes the relationship and very very interesting.
And how long have you been playing that Australian football?
For 1 year.
For 1 year.
For 1 year,
okay.
Yes.
Okay. Did you play anything before that?
I've played soccer.
Okay.
but it wasn't like professional. I just did it for fun.
Just for fun.
You know,
Okay.
like I said, I grew up with boys, and
Mm-hmm.
it was like the only sport that I could play then.
Okay.
Yeah.
Who's the best one in your family? I'm gonna
Like
get you
my
in trouble.
youngest brother,
The youngest
the one
brother?
who comes after me.
Okay, the one who comes
he's
after
really
you.
Good, yeah.
He's really good. Okay. That's cool. Okay. What about music? You have any music interests at all?
Yeah, I love music.
Mm-hmm.
Afrobeats, of course.
Afrobeats.
Yeah, like
Right.
it just brings me so much joy. Like if I'm not feeling okay, I just put on any Ugandan music and I'm just at ease.
And is there a Ugandan community within Vienna? You would say?
Yeah, we do. We do
Okay.
exist in Vienna, and we usually have like social gatherings like twice every month.
Mm-hmm.
So our next party will be on the 22nd of July.
You say every month?
Yes, like twice every month.
Okay, you're gonna have to invite me. All right. When you said twice every month, so
Twice every month.
would it be in the middle, in the end, or the beginning? And
Yes,
end?
it's mostly like in the second week of the month,
Okay.
and then also like at the end of the month.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
What do y'all typically do at the gatherings? You just
Okay, like the ones I've been to, like those were because of the weather, would just like go to an Ethiopian restaurant or any other restaurant, and then we have dinner, have a chat. But now on the 22nd, it's like a summer party, and
Okay.
I'm sure it's going to be like outdoors because the weather is
yeah.
better.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
cool.
I'm
You
also
play some
looking
Afro
forward to
beats.
that.
Okay. Okay. Cool. But now, if I can join, I would love to join one day.
Sure.
Okay. Wait, if I'm in town. All right. And what about research interests? So you're a social worker, right?
Yes.
What do you enjoy about social work? What made you do that?
I just love the fact that I'm able to extend a helping hand, you know, because I am in a position of knowing some things better than some other people, you know. So if I can help guide them, then that is something that makes me also happy. And also like being able to meet different people, you know, because if like with my previous job, you just go to different places and you get to meet different people. You learn a lot about different cultures and how different people behave.
Okay.
So it's more of also like a learning journey for me, getting to know more about things I did not know.
Okay, that's cool. And did you do your undergraduate in Uganda?
In Uganda, yes.
Okay, what do you think the differences are between being in Uganda, studying in Uganda and studying here? I know it's a master's and undergraduate can be different, but what are the similarities or differences that you've experienced since doing your master's?
Like in terms of the studies only?
In terms of the studies and lifestyle,
Well, with lifestyle, it's a very huge difference.
Okay,
you know?
in what way?
Because Uganda is of course like a very collective country. I would say like the system is very collective. Like we do things together. You're always there for one another.
Okay.
You know, like sometimes there's this culture of we are friends, and of course I do not expect if we are really friends or like best friends. There's that concern of caring for one another without someone asking for help. You know. And then, of course, you know someone's weakness, if they're not so good in class and I'm so good. And then that is something that you work out without someone having to ask you.
Okay, so you work together,
you
like
work
collaboratively?
together, yes.
Wow, okay,
Yes.
that's good. You think that's the difference between here and there, would you say?
Because I would say that, because sometimes I feel like here, like with the studies, it's more of like people want to do stuff like all by themselves, you know. Like if we have to do like a group activity, not everyone is willing to do the same thing, you know.
Okay,
it's like someone wants to be alone or to do stuff all by themselves. So
okay, and you rather just do things collectively, right?
Yes.
Okay. And what about? Could you think of any people who have been, I guess, influential in your life? I know you spoke about your uncle. Being an influence to you coming here. Is there anyone else that's been in your life that's influenced you and stuff and whatever you're doing?
Come here or like in
just
my
in
studies?
Just in general, like just influenced you in your life, like just in general life.
Like to start with the studies. One of like my professor.
Okay.
She's from the Philippines.
Okay.
And she's been with the program for a very, very long time, and she's been here for a very long time, and of course some of the challenges that we could go through, those are the things that she faced, you know. So
Okay.
sometimes she would just like send us like books or like you know, things that talk about experiences of others, so we don't have to like feel like it's only us going through that, you know. And she would like constantly checking on us, you know, asking us if there's any support that we need.
Okay,
You know,
what's this professor's name?
Rena, she's called Rena.
Rena, okay,
Yeah.
Professor Rena.
Yeah.
Shout out to Professor Rena for inclusive practices at the university, right?
Yeah.
And they're at the Innsbruck
University.
Yes. Okay. Is there anyone else that's been influential to you?
I would say like my siblings, you know, because like I said, we've all grown up to be there for each other and to be strong. So like there's this thing of believing in each other, you know, like and being very supportive. Like if you want to do something, I've told my brothers before that I'm going to play football, you know, and no one even dared to tell me, oh, you don't have to do it, or because of this and this, you know. All of them were very supportive. And like when I played my first game, they were like very surprised because I sent them like videos, and they were super proud, especially like the guy who comes after me because he loves football so much. Yeah. So
wow, I'll have to look up Australian football. Okay,
it's very interesting.
It is. Okay, I'll have to think. But that's cool. So your siblings, that's cool, because I feel like I'm close to my siblings as well, and I feel like we have a good relationship. So that's good to know. And now those are all I would say the good things, right? And obviously with challenges as well, challenges can come out well. But what are some of the most challenging moments for you as a migrant, I'd say, so far, and how have you navigated them?
One of the greatest challenge was the language, of course, because I don't speak German.
Okay.
Yeah, so that is up to now still one of my greatest challenges. And most of the time, some of my classmates do speak, you know, quite good German, and I would of course ask them to help me if I needed like maybe to contact an organization or something like that. Yeah, but like when I was still in Innsbruck, like the organization that dealt with, let's say, the students' residence permits and stuff like that, so some of the officials spoke English, so it wasn't so much like so hard for me like in that department. Unlike like others, if you want to talk about, let's say, health, so you'd have to look up like a doctor who speaks English.
Okay.
You know,
And there's
like
and is there any support from the university? Like, is there any like guidelines or blueprint in order to adjust coming here? Or does that make sense what I'm saying, what I'm asking? Is there anything that the university does that you know of? Or
I think they do offer like language classes.
Okay.
Like for students, but I mean, if you're like very new.
And you're here for, it's a 2-year program, right? So it's, okay. But you say, so language would be one of the most challenging.
The most challenging.
Okay.
You know.
Okay, and that's what we're going to actually get into later, right?
Yeah.
So now this is the part, but thank you for sharing your story with us. But now this is the part of the show where we are going to, let's flip it, okay? So now we'll get more into your work and how you flip the script to, I would say, like traditional narratives within it. I've had a chance to do an overview of some of your research articles that you shared with me, and much of it was around what it means to be a migrant and certain policies put in place that could be a barrier to immigrants, right? And I would say recommendations to overcome that, right? And so for our Vibra audience and us too, let's flip the African migrant script, shall we? Because your work we're going to talk about your work and how your thesis is around the African immigrant, right? In Austria specifically, right? Okay. So my first question would be around what are your perceptions of traditional or normative narratives in the work that you do that kind of create narratives that create, prejudices and stereotypes amongst your group about African migrants? Yeah,
I would say like being like an African woman or man, it's also like it comes with a lot of stereotypes and prejudice. I'll give an example, like a few, like at the beginning of the year, I met a friend, and we were just talking, and he made a statement of oh, so how is your asylum seeking going?
Okay.
And I'm like,
And this was a friend?
yeah.
Okay.
We weren't like very close, but I would say like a friend, you know, because we spoke for a bit of time. So I'm like, why do you think every black person who is, let's say in Austria, is seeking asylum? So it's like some people think that being a black person, you cannot afford to live, let's say, in Europe without seeking asylum, which is totally different and very wrong, you know. There's lots of black people who can afford to stay in Europe, like, for as long as they want to.
Right.
Yeah.
And was your friend also an international?
No.
person,
He was
or
Austrian.
He was Austrian.
Yeah, and just like after that, I was like,
And
I don't need.
Oh, you
this
cut
in my
cut them
life.
off. You cut them off. Okay. I mean, I don't blame you, but
I hate to imagine what else he would have told me.
Oh, okay. I hear you on that. And how did that make you feel, though?
It felt. It made me feel very bad and very sad, like of the perception that people have towards black people. You know, like you do not give a black person a chance to explain themselves. It's just like, okay, the stereotypes you have in your head, that is what you think, you know, of a black person. Like, even if a black person tells you this is A, B, C, you're still not going to believe them because, you know, of the mentality that you have towards us.
There's those assumptions, those prejudices, those stereotypes. And where do you think those come from? Like the stereotypes. Why do you feel people have that perception of Africans in Austria or Vienna?
I would say sometimes maybe social media, you know, but it's not that everything you read is true.
Right.
If you take time and let's say travel down to Uganda, you'll get to know that the things that are said on social media is absolutely different from the people that you meet there. I've had friends tell me, oh, I've been to Africa and it was totally different, you know, like people are much more nicer than the prejudice that is going on around the world.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
And how, because you said there's a Ugandan community here, right? Ugandan, that's right, I'm saying it right.
Yes,
okay.
yes.
And is it typical for Ugandans to come to Austria? Is that typical, as far as like what you're doing, like studying or moving to work, etc.? Yes. Is that like a typical thing that Ugandans do, or some Ugandans? I
haven't really met like that many, but I would say yes, because some are students and some are working, you know. So
I wish I would have did some extra research on this. I don't know if there's a colonial history behind it, or if it's just there's a certain relationship between Austria and Uganda. If that makes sense, I don't know the relationship, so I should have done more research on that. But that's okay. Okay, but what about the people that you know here now? Is there similarities or differences between the experiences something that you've experienced or that somebody else may have experienced? Have you heard of anything similar or different that other people have gone through?
To Ugandans in particular?
I would say just African immigrants. I would say Black African immigrants.
Definitely, yes.
So it's
quite
just
a lot.
Similar prejudices. Could you give an example at all, or is that okay? Or
like a few weeks back, I just met up with a friend, and she told me she went to the doctor, you know, and she speaks German, but it's not like B1 or something. Okay. But it's the way she told me, it's expressive, like she's able to express herself. And then after, when she was done, she just overheard the doctor say, like in German, that I don't like that girl. Okay. And I'm like, okay, so if he doesn't like you, why is he still like in the profession? Because I believe if you're choosing, let's say, a profession to be a doctor, you're going to meet lots of different people with lots of different skin color. Right. You know, so if you do not like to meet people of different colors, I don't think you should be doing some professions, you know.
And that was a doctor here. So how does that make you feel? Like when you if you visit doctors here, how does that make you feel as far as trying to develop a relationship with the healthcare system?
Honestly, it's very sad because, I mean, if you're fighting for your life and the doctor says something like that, how can I even trust, like, the medication he's like, you know, the prescription he's giving me? Right. And it also makes you, like, a little bit cautious. It makes me a little bit cautious of, okay, if I have to go to a doctor, I'm going to have to ask, a fellow black person, like, which doctor have you been to?
Right.
Can they like take me, to avoid having to go through the same experience that someone else went to. Right. So, you're always looking out to a doctor who accepts people, not only doctor, but maybe a teacher or, whatever social services you may need.
Okay, I got it. And okay, I hear you. So there's like this lack of trust and hesitancy to be involved with the healthcare system here. Okay, I got you. And okay, thank you for sharing some of your stories. Could you like share a particular moment that you would consider a turning point? I would say in your career, and let's say the work that you do, like your master's thesis, for example. Like, what was a turning point in your life that made you want to actually, like you said in the beginning, like support and enhance the human experience? That makes sense.
Okay. One of the incidents was like, I don't speak German, like I said before. And then since I'm writing on integration right now, like when you come, I would like for my case, when I traveled, I just had in my mind that I don't speak German, and I did not imagine that it would be like extremely hard to even get, to socialize with people or to integrate on different levels, So when you come and then you don't speak the language, it's like you cannot socialize or integrate. But then I've also seen and met people who speak B2 German, and they are still not integrated and still not socialized with their people. So it just makes me wonder, like, what we have different, like, different meanings attached to the term integration and socialization.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when you were talking about people who can speak German and people who may not be able to speak German, it's within an African ethnic group. Is that what you're saying, right? So exactly, Africans who can speak German are still not able to integrate as well as, let's say, someone else. Someone like an American, basically. That's okay. And why do you think that is? What does the work say? Do you know anything about what the research says around this?
Like most of the research, of course, will point out issues of issues of discrimination, right, of racism, and stuff like that. And then when you look at what is happening, you just realize it's just not about the language. There's something so much deeper than just a language.
Right, and that's what made you do your thesis topic, right?
Exactly,
Could you explain to the audience a bit about what your thesis topic is and what you're doing currently?
Yeah, so that was like my turning point, like the what we think, is not the reality. Like they'll tell you, even if you speak German C2, you'll be well integrated and blah, blah, blah. But it's not the case, you know. You speak C2 and you're still treated like trash. Okay. So like, what do they mean by socialization and integration?
Right, okay. Yeah. And for your research, I forgot, what exactly are you doing for your field work? Like, was it interviews or focus groups? What do you plan on doing?
I would like to do like interviews, of course, like to get to know, since I would like to focus like on the experiences that the African migrants have faced, so I'll do interviews. Okay. Yeah. Okay,
and when you say African migrants, that's from anywhere in Africa, right? Any ethnicity, right? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, and what would your hypothesis be right now? What do you think would be some of the findings, just if you could guess?
Racism.
Okay.
Yeah.
And why do you think that is? I guess what we talked about before, the prejudices and stereotypes, right? Okay, because I know some of the research that you sent me was like around migration and integration, right? And how it could be fluid and they both intertwine, but are often kind of, there's this blurred lines around what's actually happening. So once you migrate, how do you integrate, right? What happens when you integrate, like you said about language?
Yeah. Even
if you know the language, you're still not necessarily included or involved, right, within the Austrian experience. And how would you consider, I guess you maybe speak for yourself about how did you feel about Austria before you came here, if that makes sense? What was your interpretations of Austria or Vienna?
To be honest, like before I came, I did not know that Austria existed.
Okay.
You know, but like when my uncle told me, he told me about Innsbruck, you know. And so I went online, started reading about Austria, started reading about Innsbruck specifically because that was going to be my start point, you know.
Okay.
And they just showed so much beauty, and I was like, okay, this is very interesting.
Okay.
So like from that time, I just go to learn more, and you know.
Okay, so you knew nothing about Vienna.
No, because I didn't even do history like
Yes.
way back. So.
Okay, that's fine. I was just trying to figure out, like, because there's this interpretation. I know in the research it talks about how migrants don't want to assimilate or be integrated into I would say the native community. So, for instance, we say Austrians, right? And it's more so around kind of what we talked about beforehand. We talked about how there's certain policies in place that are becoming barriers and restricting people, specifically in this context, African migrants to come to Austria, right? And how familiar are you with like the language tests and all that when it comes to trying to become a citizen or integrate into Austria? What do you know about that at all? Anything?
I would say not perfect, but of course I've read quite a lot because I'm here. And like every year I have to renew my permit, you know, my stay permit. So I have to read and, you know, get to know more. And like most of my friends, sometimes like when we meet, we just talk about, you know, stuff like that to know if any of us has learned about new policies, you know, something that we need to know, you know.
And it's interesting. So in your university right now, do they actively, you said it's an international community. So how is their recruitment like when it comes to people outside of Austria? Do they recruit people? Do you know anything about their recruitment strategies and how they recruit people that are not Austrian born? If that makes sense.
Currently, I know that you have to do like an online application. You know, you do an online application and there's assessment and there's like an interview, something like that, where they get, you know, to ask you how much you know about, you know, the program, you know, stuff like that, or like what would your contribution be. So that is like the recruitment process of how they get students to join the program.
Okay, and how did you find that process? How did you find it as far as like, was it straightforward? Was it complex? What do you think?
I think it was like a little bit complex.
Okay.
You know, but I had like I told you, my uncle was here before, so we got to share so much, and he shared with me some of his past papers. So before I went for that, I had like already read quite a lot, and having a background of social work just made it quite easier for me also, like because it's more or less, you know, some things do cut across. Yeah, so it was a bit.
And does a master's degree here hold weight back in Uganda, I'm assuming, and why
definitely.
Why do you think that is?
Because it's Europe.
Okay, but that's the challenge though, right? So would that be typical within other countries as well? Would you feel, as far as a postgraduate degree in Europe holds heavy weight or heavy capital, symbolic capital when it comes to going back home? Is that how it works?
Yes.
Okay, and for our listeners, I wish I did more homework on the Ugandan and Austrian, I won't say conflict, but relationship. Yes, because I mean, in research they talk about there's three main reasons for migrating, right? There's a colonial background that was connecting Europe, right, and with their former colonies, and then there's also labor migration, so recruiting countries, like, so for instance, if universities recruiting students to come, right? And then there's also this refugee migration. That is, they said, it's been more strongly associated with Eastern Europe, with Western Europe. But for our audience, those are some of the reasons why. And like what Sandra just mentioned, I guess it's the second reason. Part of it is trying to, I guess, have a degree, right? And that results in social mobility back at home, right?
Yes.
Okay. And when do you feel like you'll finish your thesis? When do you think that'll be done? When do you have to finish it?
The plan is to finish it in December.
Okay.
So that I can be able to graduate, like either in March or at the start of summer.
Okay. And the question, how do you feel? So I was going to ask about, so your research in particular, how do you feel it's going to transform narratives or flip the script to the traditional narratives that we talked about earlier? Right? How do you feel it would do that?
I think like the most important thing right now for me is just basically to create like awareness for people to just know, that do not think, that you speaking, let's say, a language to perfection just guarantees you automatic like integration or stuff like that. You for me as a migrant, I would just need to find my own people, find your own people and socialize with them. When it happens that you're able to socialize with people outside, well and good, because this is like, if I'm to say this is like a white man's land, and we as black people have different challenges. Some you would meet like a white person and he treats you nice, and then you meet another person and he treats you like shit. And if you're seeking for a place of refuge, like a safe space, you're going to find it in your own people, because you're going to be able to share and they're going to help you like go through it.
Right. Okay. So, and it's just like, so it's challenging that narrative, because I know in the research and also in policies, the system is always blaming, I would say, I call victims targets, because it's, they don't want to assimilate or don't want to ingratiate themselves. But why would you want to ingratiate yourself in the dominant culture when it doesn't accept you? Exactly. Like what you just said, right?
Exactly.
Obviously we're going to go to ourselves, right? This is there's a book called in America, it's from Beverly Tatum. It's like, why are all the black kids sitting together at the lunch table in the cafeteria, right? And this has resonated to my experience, because I went to predominantly white schools when I was growing up, and we had a clique little, it was like 6 or 7 of us black dudes, and we're in middle school, so we're like 12, and we were at the cafeteria. We always sat together, and it was predominantly white, but we were like probably the only black people in our class, right? And then I remember one day one of the students came and said, why do you all sit together and don't sit with everybody else? And then he looked around, my friend looked around, he was like the class clown. He was like, looked around and said, well, look at your table, everyone's white. Like, why are you over here talking to us, right? The whole cafeteria is white, right? So it's like that whole trying to single out specific individuals and not actually looking at what is the problem, right? And that's the dominant group not allowing us to be ourselves and be included. Exactly. It's that fear of the other, quote unquote, right? So that resonates. And then also my research was something similar. Participants said the same thing. They asked, because we have a lot of East Asian students, and one of his white friends was saying, oh, well, why all the Asian students are with each other? Why are they always with each other? And then he looked at him and said, well, look at all your friends are white, so why do they have to go? You know what I'm saying? It's just that thing. It's just that, I call it, it's the system that kind of, like I said, creates these prejudices and stereotypes right on us. So, but thank you for sharing that. So what do you, around that, do you feel that there are spaces where you feel included within Austria, not necessarily within just the international, as like within African ethnic groups, right? If that makes sense. Is there any places that you feel you do feel included in Vienna from the dominant culture, quote unquote, dominant culture?
Honestly speaking, no.
Oh, okay.
Like, I would give an example like of where I'm staying right now. I would call it like a social housing, because it's like different groups of people, like, refugees, former homeless people, students. So like for me, that is like the safest place I would, it's like my safe space. If I'm home, I just forget about like the fact that I'm, let's say, in Austria, Okay. So when I go down the streets, then I'm like, okay, now, this is now like the reality. But when I'm back home, I just don't feel that, because like everyone at home, like everyone in the housing just has like a story. Everyone has a story to say. And it's very easy to relate to people like that. If I come to you, like, and I'm telling you the challenges I faced, you're going to understand what I've been through, and you're going to empathize, which is different if I'm talking to, let's say, a white person, and you're going to start crying. Like,
I hear
Like,
what
you
you're
know,
saying.
like, why would you? Okay, I know it's bad, but right now I'm not looking for tears. You know, I just want someone to, you know, to empathize. Because when you cry, I just have the thought of, okay, maybe I've said something wrong, or you know, something like that.
And it kind of switches it focuses more on them.
Oh my,
and,
yes. So like, I
yes,
have to now take care of her or of him. You know, which is something I do not want to do. So if I have any problem, I just run back to my people.
Okay.
Just like that.
Sorry about that. So sorry, y'all. We don't know of any inclusive spaces yet in Vienna.
For me, no.
For Sandra. Okay. But then I guess it's when it comes to, this will probably be the last part we can get to with this group. So what do you think with your work, right? Where do you see it? Where do you see it moving forward? Like, what do you see? How are you going to do your work moving forward after you're done with your master's degree? Right? Where do you see it going?
Yeah, like I would like to continue with my, before, like I was working for like in a camp with internally displaced people. So even after my master's, I would just like to continue with the same thing, you know. I would like to still work in an organization that takes care of immigrants, refugees, or former homeless people. I think it's like, me being here, I've learned so much, and I could tell that I've grown, you know. And if I can help someone, like, you know, just go through day-to-day life and stuff like that, sure, why not do it?
Okay.
You know,
and when you said, for our audience, when you said you worked at internal displacement,
like internally, okay, like,
if you just explain that for us, because not everyone will know the term. That's okay. Yeah, just
it's
explain.
like, let's say after war, you know, and there's people who have nowhere to go, so they create a camp. So it's like internally displaced people within a country.
Okay.
You know, so if there's war here and people have nowhere to go, different organizations step in, like, to be able to offer a hand. So like there's different groups of people, you know, and maybe some people have come from like different regions, so they all just gather and start to stay in one place, you know. So that is what it's called, internally displaced people, like after a war or something like that.
And this is back at home, right?
Yes.
And how busy does it get for you when you're at home?
It's very busy.
Okay.
Like very, very busy, because like there's different groups of people, and sometimes if some people may not be able to express themselves due to the language issue, you know, because people come from different regions. So like there's like different organizations that make sure that there's different people that speak different languages, so that like the needs of everyone is catered for.
Right.
But of course, you know, if it's like a very big group of people and there is not much going on, there's like a lot of time where people just get to do whatever they want. Sometimes it's not something good, and sometimes it's, you know, something good. So you have to make sure that you step in just to ensure that for the well-being of everyone, you know, like there's order. There's different groups of people, like the military, the security.
Okay.
It's just a group of very many people, you know, trying to make sure that the safety of the people is.
And which languages do you speak?
I speak Luo.
Luo?
Yes.
Okay.
And I'm originally from Lira.
From Lira?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's in the northern part of Uganda.
It's the northern part. So Lira.
Yes.
Okay. And wow. I would say, like, I can't speak it, so I can't say, like, okay, so if I asked you, you could just maybe give us a sentence of Lua, because I've never heard of that before, obviously. But would that be a common language where you're from in Uganda?
Yeah, okay. I would say, like, there's the Luo-speaking people. And in the Luo-speaking people, there's the Cholis, the Langis, the Lurs. So it's like an umbrella of, like, 15 different languages. But, of course, some words do cut across, and it's very easy to understand each other sometimes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And see, that's what I mean, because it's the traditional narratives here in Europe and certain places in the West. It's like that is a form of capital to be able to speak so many different types, you know what I'm saying, and pick up so many different things. And that's why it would be important to have policies in place where, or something in place where people like yourself can integrate, right, and be able to, the dominant culture can learn from, right? But I guess, again, it goes back to that fear, the insecurity of losing the dominant culture, right? So,
yeah, exactly, yeah.
Okay, that's amazing. Okay, but man, I'm trying to go to Africa, but if I would like to go, and it's good to have a connect, right? That's what I'm saying, because I only want to go if I have a connect, right? And I know a few people, but I haven't met people in a way yet where I could just go
Yeah.
and stay with them for a bit, all right? But maybe we can have a long-term relationship, and maybe one day I'll come to
Sure.
Uganda, bro. Yeah.
You're most welcome.
Me and my partner, because my partner, that's one place we're trying to go, I say for sure. I know for me. All right, well, thank you for that. Now, when we think about, I would say some of the, we went over everything, right? What you're doing, some of the traditional narratives, how you're flipping the script, right? And I would just say, just for the audience, the reason why it's so important, because in research, there's this 3 forms of fragmentation that I've learned. So there's this lack of comparative research. There's this lack of cooperation between disciplines. So there's like this gap on the knowledge of migrant and immigration and integration, right? And then there's this lack of integration of the different levels at which the phenomena is studied. So there's 3 different fragments, and it's important to kind of understand the intersections between them to understand more fully about, like you said, social relations, and more specifically migrants and integration, right? Because the whole integration is the social process, and that's something that is lost, right?
Yeah.
In research that, well, I wouldn't say lost, but it needs to definitely be interrogated way more, right? So it's cool to know that you're doing what you're doing, and we'll see your thesis hopefully when it comes out, right? And just make sure you send it to me.
I will.
Okay. And now we're going to get to the concluding part, right, of our show. And this is where this is part of our show where Sandra will offer us insight around rehumanization, right? Rehumanization, y'all. So, Sandra, for the audience, if you could reflect on your journey thus far, what do you know now that you wish you knew before?
I just wish I had known that what social media projects, let's say, of what happens in Europe, like, coming from Africa, like what we see, it's just, that is not all. There's like, it's like falling from the pan, like onto the fire.
Okay.
So it's like there's so much more that goes on. So if someone is traveling, you have to be really, really mentally prepared, because it's just, it's so much more compared to what we just see, and that is how tricky life is. That if social media is projecting something, let's say from Africa, it's something very horrible. It's just about the bad things.
Right.
But if it's something that, if social media is projecting something, let's say from Europe, it's just the nice things, and people are just meant to believe that it's all a bed of roses, but it's not.
Okay.
So. All
right. So you were saying social media in Africa projects Europe as like the place to be, like this.
Exactly.
Okay.
Like, you do not see. It's very hard to even see social media of, like homeless people or people who are crazy and doing stuff like that.
Okay.
I remember when I had just come and I was talking to my mom, she was asking me like, is there also like homeless people, like, people who are crazy? I'm like, yeah.
Okay.
It is. It's real.
Because
there is.
you don't have that perception from where you're from. Okay.
Absolutely not.
It's like with this. I don't know. Frantz Fanon talks about this, about how this imagery about how Africans in particular view Europe, right? And that was decades ago, right? And it's still the same, still prevalent today, right? Because I know me as well. Like growing up in America, in Texas, I definitely had biases towards Black Africans. I consider myself a Black African now. I would consider myself a growing Pan-Africanist, right? I don't know if you know Pan-Africanism. But yeah, I had similar views because that's what was instilled in me, right? Especially when you're living in the West, you don't really understand. But with social media and, like you said, through rehumanizing, it's important to do that. So would you ever plan on using social media to, to change the narrative at all? Do you ever think about doing that? Do you do that at all, or?
I'm all for peace, for sure. And I would love to tell people like the reality of the situation, you know? Like, I've had friends who would like to travel, and I just simply tell them, you have to be just prepared for anything. And to make matters worse, if you have no one, like no friends, no family, I hate to imagine how horrible it is, you know, especially if you're coming to a country that doesn't speak a country that is not for English speakers,
Right.
And it's very hard because sometimes I was talking to a friend a few months ago, and she was calling this organization, and they just told her point blank, we are not allowed to give advice in English.
Okay.
And I'm like, okay, so that means someone could just like die, and it's not their business.
Okay. And how does that make you feel? How does that make people around you feel, like in your group, your social
Like
group?
for me, like before I was learning, putting so much effort in learning the language, but like after when my friend told me something like that, I'm like, for me this is definitely not worth it. You have to be able to give people the grace to learn. You cannot just say, I cannot do this, and you clearly know someone is not from here.
Right.
So it just demotivated me, and I'm like, okay,
and
the world will take me wherever it wants.
and I know it's a small population, but do you have in your friendship group people who are actually born here in Austria, like Black Africans, or let's say dual ancestry, like mixed race people who are actually born in Austria, speak German? Do you have anybody in that friendship group? No?
Okay. Most of the classmates are like from Sierra Leone, from India, from Egypt. None of us is like born here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you for sharing that. Okay, that's something. Okay. Now, last question. You ready?
Yeah.
Okay. What does rehumanization look like to you?
I would just say being able to let people be themselves, like giving people the opportunity to grow, and looking beyond someone's color. Like, this is just color. We are all human beings. So being able to accept someone the way they are and giving them time to grow, being accepting, like, there's no need to discriminate anyone. It makes no sense. Like, it doesn't make you less of a human being if you're black or brown or, wherever you come from.
Right.
It doesn't make you less of a human being. You're still a human being still. And also, like, people being able to accept themselves. Like, let's say as a migrant, you just have to know, yes, fine, I am a migrant,
Okay.
You don't have to beat yourself up for, for something that has failed, or because the more I think the more you try to beat yourself up for something that has failed, you're just giving room for yourself to, to be depressed, to break down, which is, in the end, is not something good.
Okay. Oh, thank you. Okay. Yeah. Wow. Okay. Wow. Thank you for that. So basically, just accepting people for their differences, and also, and within that, just allowing people to grow and allowing yourself to grow.
Exactly.
Right. Okay. Thank you. Wow. Okay. Yeah. Thank you. That was okay. Now, do you have any like social media handles or platforms that people could follow you on at all? IG or Twitter?
Yeah, I do have Instagram.
Okay. What's your Instagram?
Like Sandra Anol Okori.
Anol Okori.
Sandra Anol Okori, yes.
Do you have Twitter or anything, or LinkedIn, anything?
Yes, it's the same for LinkedIn, but unfortunately I'm not on Twitter.
Okay, no, it's fine. No worries. Okay. Well, thank you for coming today. I really appreciate it. Thank you for sharing your story. It was amazing. Like I said, I'm going to come to Uganda. All right,
I
I'm
would
going to
like
go.
it so much.
But what's the food like in Uganda? What's the food? What's the main dish? Because I love food. And what would be the main dish?
You would have a very good time because different regions have different food. So like in my region, we have bo. It's called bo. I don't know how it's called in English.
Okay, bo.
We have bo, then malakwang. It's very, very delicious meals, and also like pumpkin leaves.
Okay.
And then when you go to the central part of the country, they have matoke, they have peanuts. Okay. It's you would really have
very diverse.
A very good time, yeah.
And do you feel like, I don't know, I was going to ask you before we go, how do you feel about the Austrian cuisine? The Austrian cuisine, do you just cook yourself, or do you go to other African restaurants here?
African restaurants?
Here, yes.
Yeah, there's Ethiopian restaurants, there's, some Nigerian restaurants, and
yeah, I had some, there was the vegan mania was last week, and there was an Ethiopian vegan stand. It was really good. I forgot exactly. We had a few curries. It was really good though. Okay. Well, thank you for that. All right. Well, thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, we'll definitely have you here again, and yeah, we'll definitely vibe with each other and meet up after this. Okay. Yeah. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Shout out to Sandra, aka Coco. Thank you so much for joining the episode. It's this is the reflections section. Real quickly, I'm gonna speak about what we talked about a bit about migrant and integration, and it's important for people to just allow different types of groups who aren't native born to feel included and have a sense of belonging, right? And it's this dominant culture, it's this fear, and it's this term I use, white insecurity, where it's more about, it's both the fear of the dominant group, specifically European white groups, fear of quote unquote the other, which is the resilient majority, right? And they tend to create policies that become barriers for different types of groups, right? And those policies are created based off of a fear, like I mentioned, and that in turn creates stereotypes, like what Sandra was mentioning, towards other groups outside of European ethnicity, or being white in particular. And it's just important to allow people to be themselves, like Sandra mentioned, about allowing people, about accepting difference and about allowing people to grow, right? That was her definition of rehumanization, and how growing is essential, not just collective. It's about growing collectively, but also growing through the self, right? Through the self is the most important thing, to grow through the self, and then you're able to grow collectively with other people. And I think that's the main thing that the dominant group is missing, is allowing different cultures, because we know that with diversity, the increase in diversity, there could be more inclusivity, right? And it's important to allow people to be themselves. I think that's what we got out of today. Allow people to grow, to be their authentic selves, and just removing this fear, right? This fear. And yeah, but thank you for today. Thank you for joining us, Viber audience. And yeah, until the next episode, one love.